everyone, back to day 3 now of the wild cards. It's Saturday, December 12th, and that means it's about time for Europe to get back on track and figure out who from their region is going to be going forward to play up against some of the SPL teams for their chance at a World Championship moving forward. But first, they got to get through the rest of each other, and that's the big deal. My name's Gormizer. Joining me for this desk at the very beginning is going to be none other than Kiki himself. And Kiki, I'm excited to have you on here. I will say, though, you have maybe the hardest task of the day right now, which is to convince me that Belt Slap aren't just going to control this game.
Well, let's just say you really cannot predict what these players are going to be pulling out. This is the end of the year. They've had a year to try to figure out what is the best Season 7 meta. So I think that we will see something spicy that we haven't seen just yet. People be holding onto their best picks, and Belt Slap might have to watch out.
Yeah, we got to keep our eyes open. They have to keep their eyes open as well. But we have to look at how they got to where they are now. Belt Slap, as well as Snake Pit, the first matchup that you're going to be seeing today, had pretty easy steps to this point. We actually saw some of those highlights coming into today, and both of them found themselves 2-0s. And, of course, they're still trying to traverse themselves to the finals. The way today is going to work, guys, is we have 2 of the matches that we're going to be watching. One up here in the finals, one down there in the lower bracket, and then, of course, the finals, grand finals, I guess, at the very end, where whoever wins actually in this first set is going to have that 1-game advantage in a best of 5. So maybe a nice little, I want to say consolation prize. You win the set plus you get that 1 game going forward instead of having the bracket reset, and that's going to make things a little more interesting to see. And that's the thing that I think is interesting. All of these teams have a lot of history playing against each other. All of them have had that warm-up. This tournament has brought in some gods that I honestly didn't expect to see at first pick. I mean, when you go back to Europe, we've seen Rom be pretty prominent, but Guan Yu has been there as well. But now as we take a look at the bracket, you can see how these teams have to continue going. Cold Alpacas and Smiley Face are going to be playing, while Belt Slap and Snake Pit are, and this is going to be a big determining factor for how the rest of the day is going to continue shaking out. But going back towards, I guess, the way the games have been going, as well as what we're going to see today, if you're looking for Belt Slap here, and you're looking at Snake Pick, Guan Yu, Rom, very big picks. Do you expect them to still be impactful here?
I feel like the Guan Yu for sure. I mean, he has a shred, which helps on killing frontline. He has heals. The ultimate is one of the highest damaging ultimates in the game. So definitely the Guan, but the Hunters, I feel like we're starting to see a change up in meta. We're seeing priority on Heim. We are seeing Cupid not even being picked as much. So I think people are favoring the more tanky characters right now. You see Kepri being top picked. So people really just want to remain safe. And if your Rama's being dove by a Kuzembo, Kepri, whatever, like, you might just regret it.
Now, this is the one, again, I think I said you have the hardest task because I have it in front of me. Snake Pit's just competitive year, right? Qualifying for the Challenger Circuit, 3rd place in the first phase, they get 2nd place at the playoffs. 4th place in the 2nd phase, don't make it for playoffs. 3rd place in the 3rd phase, they get 2nd at the playoffs. And then 2nd place in phase 4 now is the time that would technically qualify as playoffs for them. And every time they've gotten 2nd, every single phase, the struggle has been beating Belt Slap. But I guess the consolation prize is they've played Belt Slap literally all year, and like you had said, not only have they had a year to figure out what the top metas are going to be, but they have such a long history with this team. And so when you're looking at Snake Pit, who are you looking at as being kind of the driving factor? What players stand out to you?
For me, Angry did really a great job at just exhibiting pressure. You see a lot of mid laners nowadays, they're scared to make a play because you're not the most farm player, and if you get behind as a mage, it really does not feel good. But once you have the ability to look for plays, look for 1v1 options, that can get you a lead, which puts everyone else in a great position. But I think Genetics is going to be who we're looking for. He is the shot caller of the team. He controls the state of the game. Him and Worst Turtle working together, that's who we're looking out for.
That's actually going to be, I think, a very fun combo because, like you said, like Angry being a very prominent player. If you look towards the other side, Zeros typically dies pretty early. I feel like Belt Slap put him up as the sacrificial lamb sometimes for their team fights. So maybe the mid laner is able to jump forward, but it comes down to that support and that jungler, and that is where things are so crucial because when you cross the road and look at Belt Slap, that means your exact one-on-ones are going against Trix Tank and Johnny, both of which have been insane players at any given time in history of Smite. But, you know, Johnny specifically the one that I think of highlighting the most, because when it comes down to watching this team in their regular Phase 4 form, or Phase 3, or Phase 2, or Phase 1, it just always feels like Johnny was the one driving things in terms of the jungle. But we'll have to see if he's going to be the one controlling things as we move forward to picks and bans here for game number 1. I mean, who do you prioritize here? You had mentioned the jungle and the support. Is that where you're going if you're Snake Pit?
We have seen some jungle bans lately. We've been seeing some circuit bans. I don't think you can go wrong with a set ban, but looks like they're going to be starting off with a Persephone ban. Definitely respecting the mids in this set right now. Mids are going to be what packs the punch once you get some CC in there. So if you have a good mage, then that just increases your kill potential. And interesting, we're seeing a Sobek ban. Sobek recently got a buff to his passive, so he's just really hard to kill. He gets 30 protections early game, and dealing with those plucks sometimes, if you get a beads in the air, it feels the worst because your beads are gone and you're still getting dispositioned. So gonna get that out of there. And an Apollo ban. Respects go out to Dejani.
Yeah, I think we're in an interesting realm. I mean, you know, Hell, Persephone, those are things that I'm used to seeing up there. Hell, especially considering we saw Angry highlights on this Hell, makes sense to take that away. But Khepri, the Sobek that you had highlighted, the Apollo, the Rom even coming through, I mean, I don't even know where to begin with what's available. Yamoja, maybe first and foremost. It seems to be where Belt Slap are turning as well. I mean, you try to control Trix Tank, I want to say, with that Sobek pick. Is it worth giving the Yamoja up for that kind of ban?
Well, Trix Tank's always been the type of player who is not afraid to get in there. Even if he's a level 10 Sobek versus a bunch of 15s, he's going to somehow find a way to bait a great team fight. Trix Tank's really smart. He does have no fear in his heart. And him on Yamoja, I mean, he won't be able to properly get in there and set up a fight, but she has so much in her kit, and Trix Tank is not one to shy away from mechanics. But that does leave open the Guan Yu, which will combat in healing, and it gives their solo laner a good option. And the Circuit. I'm definitely liking their draft so far. That counters the Yamoja healing so far.
Yeah, it keeps them. It gives them a little bit of that sustain, like you said, and it helps them shut down some of the healing that comes through. Plus, again, when you go back to the highlights, I'm watching some Circuit plays, and I'm seeing something that's very comfortable there for Worst Turtle. But it's the Chang'e. I feel like Belt Slap, it's such a difficult team to play against because they just have so much available to them. And Chang'e, I'll be honest, Kiki, that's not where I was going. My mind was trying to figure out what next, who's going to be locked in. And Chang'e was not at the top of that list, but it is something that Zeros played the other day. And it looked pretty good. I mean, what does Chang'e mean, or bring, I should say, to the mid lane that would make her this high priority for Belt Slap?
Well, I was actually practicing a lot of Chang'e before I stopped competing like 3 months ago. I think she's so good. She got buffed, so now her clear's great. They buffed her heal. They even buffed her damage. So Chang'e, really what she brings to the table is it's going to be hard to kill her. You have to really try to counterpick her if you do want to mess her up. But she has her immunity on her too, so she's generally a safe character. The only downside is the early game, but now with the buffs, she does seem very comfortable playing. And Zerahos is the type of player who wants to be able to fight constantly. So him on Chang'e, I'm a big fan.
Well, I was thinking it was going to be a battle of the junglers so far. Circuit was picked up for Snakepit, but nothing of the like for Belt Slap so far. Xing Chen gets locked in there at the very end alongside that Jingwei, or I guess opposing that Jingwei there for Belt Slap. And then immediately Snakepit know where they need to start hammering things through. I see a Bakasura, I see a Kali still available. That's dangerous territory when Belt Slap are available. But it's a Heimdall on the other side. Maybe some more Hunters that are going to be coming through. And then, as I say so, thinking it's going to be, well, I guess still technically maybe a jungle ban, Nike band from Snakepit here, just trying to get everything under control for them. And they're still looking for a mage, they're still looking for a hunter. With Ra and Heimdall gone, do you think they still have enough options to flex into?
I think they have set up a really good comp for themselves. They have the Circuit Jing, so that's a lot of beads burning right there. A lot of CC, which I guess they're going to just go for the safe pick right now. They're going to show the Hachiman, and they're going to hold their mid pick until they know what the jungler is going to be.
It's a good, safe call, knowing what Johnny's playing on the other side, just because you never know what he's going to be bringing. Plus, Hachiman, it actually feels like, contrary to what we've seen, you know, Cupid versus Rom, where it's pressure versus pressure, who can control the lane, I feel like Jingwei versus Hachi is the most relaxed duo lane there will be. Like, maybe there's some solo potential, but both of them are pretty good at getting out of engagements, Jingwei and Hachiman both with their ult. It looks like Johnny's going to be bringing out the Thor. Hasn't been picked yet in Europe so far. So a very interesting one. I'm not sure he's been picked up yet at all this weekend. And maybe going alongside the Hercules, something that Julio does play over there in the solo lane. Has played a couple of times so far this tournament. How are you liking this lineup for Belt Slap?
Well, Belt Slap's comp so far has 2 healers, 1 self-healer. You have 2 safe characters with Jingwei and Thor. They have good CC. So their comp is really safe.
A lot of pluses.
Let's see what let's see what they rounded out. The Merlin, they're going to have a lot of consistent damage onto the other team, but I'm definitely giving it over to the Yemoja comp. It just feels much easier to execute.
Yeah, you're going to have a little bit of anti-heal from Circuit, but it feels like you need some pretty big prioritization of items. Although I guess that's where that Merlin comes in. Like, he's pretty good at applying that Divine Ruin. You can get that out there pretty easily. Circuit maybe being able to get something like that Brawler. So it's not the end of the world for Snakepit, but usually when you get 2 healers plus the Hercules with his self-sustain, things start to balance out there. Do you think Xingqian, Guan Yu as a frontline are going to be able to separate them enough from the healers, or are they never going to be able to really get to them because the healing will be so potent?
I think that the Guan Yu comp is going to be looking to fight more balled up and just get that AoE with Merlin. But with Yemoja comp, they can have the fight scattered. Jingwei can be diving. Thor's going to follow up. Herc's going to be in there zooming around. It's going to be hard for them to deal with him. But what really is going to matter is who gets pressure in mid and which jungler can invade these blue buffs.
Well, in every tournament so far that Snakepit have played against Belt Slap, they've only ever been able to take 1 game off of Belt Slap. Let's see if they can change that today. Let's go down to game number 1 with the casters.
Thank you, Gormizer and Kiki. Belt Slap and Snakepit. Mifflin, I feel like this is a game I've seen so many times this season, but it's always come up Belt Slap's victory onto this one. Snakepit have a tall task ahead of them for this one.
They do, but they've also got a pretty strong team composition. It seems like a pretty good strategy here as well. A 4-man grouping. Careful, Trix!
Well, Trixtank has Purification Beads first relic, and that's the only thing that's going to save him from this gank by the Snakepit. A great attempt. I don't think they were expecting to see a Beads pop up from that support.
Good pickup, nice awareness from Trixtank there, making sure that he's going to be safe in lane. But now, beads have been burned pre-minion wave. Now that we're really going to be susceptible towards that level 2 gank that junglers are so apt to do. Worst turtle on this Circuit is going to be in a very good position to rotate through early on and try and pick up this Yemoja while her beads are down. Trix is going to play very safe in lane, which means that one of the main strengths of Yemoja is going to be lost out. You won't be able to play that aggressive style, that push style that she's so good at.
I feel like Julio is one of the only people still playing Hercules solo of all things. We saw Hercules support so much in these last 2 seasons of Smite. Seeing him in the solo just kind of feels so strange now. I mean, what does this Hercules have to offer versus any of the more traditional warriors we see over in that lane?
Hercules brings early aggression to no matter what lane you put him in. If you want him in support, you're going to find a lot of pressure there. If you want him in solo, he should be able to find pressure there as well. So Hercules brings a lot of early kill potential. The reason we don't normally see him in the solo lane is because solo laners generally don't get to have their impact on the game until much later on, as Angry falls to Johnny in mid. He tries to go in to defend his red buff and loses his life.
Talk about early aggression. Johnny is the name of the game for it. Usually one of the first players getting those first bloods for his team almost every single time they compete, and getting off to an early start on this door is going to spell danger for Snakepit.
We love to see it. Belt Slap are in, well, I was going to say rare form, but that's not fair. They're always looking this good. Already we're starting to see pressure established on the map. Red buff invaded. Thor finds first blood in mid. They're already controlling whatever they can at this early phase. But one invade makes not for a lead. It's what Belt Slap are going to be able to do with that timer.
Right now, they're making good work of it in this duo lane. Even despite the early beads lost by Trixtank, they're still playing well up to the tower line of the Snake Pit. I mean, Snake Pit are no strangers to having to play for the later game, especially against Belt Slap. I mean, this is a team, Belt Slap loves to play slow and then just hit the gas pedal at 20-25 minutes because they know they've got the team fight when that late game comes.
But I like that you point out how aggressively Trix is playing in that lane. We thought that he would have to play a little bit more passively considering he lost his beads so early on. But because of Johnny's rotation path able to force out the mid laner, it also controls Worst Turtle on this circuit, making that he can't rotate in a duo. He has to control his own jungle. He had to rotate into his backs just to make sure that those weren't invaded as well, which creates the space for Belt Slap to play aggressively in the duo anyway. And now Yamoja's beads are back up. That layer of safety has returned. I think Belt Slap's in a very good spot.
Arco's going to take a little bit of poke. And one thing for me that I've noticed throughout now 4 phases of play with the Snake Pit is usually kind of their like beck and call of how they get to that late game is through Tarim and Angry. So few teams ever show Angry the respect he deserves in that mid lane, especially on that Merlin. This is kind of his fallback god. I got Merlin. What? I'll just play him. No big deal. And teams always kind of forget that he exists, and they just let Angry free farm. But Belt Slap is one of the only teams that have shown that respect to Angry and say, we know that you're one of the hard carries for this team, and we're going to respectively just stomp you into the dirt.
As respectfully as you could, right? You're right to point it out. It's already happened once this game, and he's still maintained his beat, so it's at least he doesn't have to play too safe, waiting till that level 5 mark. He should be able to play as aggressively as he needs to. But already, if you look at the matchup in mid, Zeros on this Chang'e should be able to keep the pressure up on Angry with or without Johnny's help. This Chang'e is one of the best bruiser, brawler-esque mages that you can bring in a mid. I know Aggro thinks that it's a little bit lacking in terms of confirmable damage, but we'll see what it does right here.
Well, John's going to swing and a miss with that ultimate right into the middle of the minion wave instead. Just a little too far out of range. Angry and Worst are able to spot him, so again, going a little unsuccessful there for Johnny, but more than anything, just getting some pressure for his mid laner set up for those mid camps.
And you pick him up easily, and now they've controlled not only the enemy red buff, but both neutral camps on the left and right side. Johnny's doing a fantastic job, not only creating pressure on the map just by existing as Thor. Once he walks into his side jungle, the enemy team just has to be cautious because of the threat of Anvil of Dawn, but he's also out farming his opposition about a whole level up over the Cirquette, who's just now ticked over to level 6, whereas Johnny's been kind of vibing there for a little while now. I want to see Snake Pit play a little bit more aggressively. I want to see this Circuit get involved a little bit earlier on, especially around this duo lane. Sure, Yamoja has beads, but I think that might be still one of the easiest lanes for Worst Turtle to make an impact on.
We talk about Zeros is level 7 now on this Chang'e. That one assist that he got, that little bit of pressure, but more than anything, I think it's that passive of Chang'e that's just allowed him to sit here for so long. He doesn't ever really have to lose out on that farm.
He doesn't. The passive being that you can buy an item and have your rabbit go pick it up for you and return it to you in lane. You don't normally get a huge amount of value off of it because you want to legitimately back, as Trixtank gets caught out a little bit here, not willing to commit the ultimate. Worst Turtle's going to go ahead and back up because of the 3-man grouping from Belt Slap around their red.
We'll be able to pick up that red buff, and Trixtank gets out of dodge for the moment, doesn't use his beads, doesn't use the ult, so he's got him for the next fight, and you know he's going to be one of the primary targets. You can keep that Yamoja down. It's a huge benefit for your team. Mid camps, not sure if they got split there as Angry throws the Blizzard down into the midst of them, but back to the back camps they'll go, and now proccing to level 8 already as Zeros on that mid lane.
It's signature Belt Slap, right? Sure, we pick up a couple stray kills in the early game, but that's never really the focus of the squad. They're looking to farm up, get to that 20-25 minute mark that you highlighted earlier, and then group up on the Gold Fury, group up on the Fire, force fights, and use their superior just game existence, I guess. All of these guys have been playing competitive since competitive has really existed, so they use that experience to try and box out these newer teams, these teams that haven't been playing together nearly as long.
You just see how patient Beltslap are playing. They're not trying to make any kind of overly aggressive plays. Even that gank in the mid lane that Johnny attempted, it's to get some vision. It's to see if he can grab anything, catch a straggler out. But if he didn't catch anybody, he says, okay, no worries. Wait till it's back up. We'll go back and farm. And that's all that Beltslap really do in the early game. Yeah, like he said, they'll pick up a stray kill or two if they can, but they're not going to be the team that's looking for those early fights. They're not looking to slap box this early on in the game.
But they are looking to control the farm, and so far they've been doing a fantastic job of it. A level disparity in the supports, inside the jungle as well. ADCs have got a little bit of a difference as well. Look at the builds. Spudio elects to pick up a Bloodforge early on. Should increase his early kill pressure, but it is going to make him a little bit worse scaling coming in the late game, whereas Devo's gloves, much quicker, much easier to move into those boots. I think Arkle is going to have a pretty nice spot in about 2 or 3 minutes here, once he finishes up that Ninja Tabai, where he's going to have a slight advantage over Spudio in lane.
Do you think it's just because he's going up against Jingwei that Spudio can kind of go for a little bit riskier and more expensive early game lifesteal item compared to the more traditional Dev Gauntlets?
I think it might be just the nature of the lane. 2 safe gods as Genetics gets found in the jungle.
Up into the sky goes Johnny looking for the dunk down. Genetics still has his leap as far as I'm aware. He's going into the back line. Will blinker right past it. And that'll be a whip there by Johnny. He's off the mark either way that one hit. Genetics will get out, losing his blink for it though, and his ultimate.
Now, I gotta give some props to Johnny there. He aimed where he thought the Jingchen would blink from reaction to the sound. We saw that it came through, and he was, what, maybe a couple pixels off of range? Yeah, I gotta give respect to him. He went for the outplay, unfortunately didn't find it that time around, but he does burn off Genetics' ultimate, gets rid of the blink as well, so now Snake Pit's early aggression, their ability to start these fights in the 3v3, is gonna be completely just winded. They won't have it until this Jingchen's ready to fight again.
And then once again, it's just back to the slow farm game. And this is just the name of the game for Beltslap. See what we can grab. Didn't get anything. Got a kill. All right, cool. Back to our A game. Back to waiting for that ticking time bomb to go off. Let's get Johnny his farm. Level 10 versus level 8. Ultimate out of Genetic, or ultimate onto Genetics out of Trix Tank. That'll put him down to about half health. Trix Tank will be able to get out for the time being. But, I mean, this level lead on Johnny is starting to grow, and he's only gotten 1 kill.
Has, and now Beltslap already 1,000 gold in the lead, even though they haven't really been doing too much as far as aggression goes. That said, Snake Pit's been doing a very good job of allowing Angry to free farm, whereas we've had Trix Tank in mid a little bit more often. Genetics has allowed this Merlin to farm up on his own. There's about a half-level lead for the Merlin over the opposition.
Once he gets Snake Pit just recognizing again that Angry is kind of one of their premier players. He's the one that they need to get to that late game, get as much farm as possible for him. Genetics once again being aggressed on by Johnny will take a little bit of damage from that hammer toss. And nothing more beyond there. Just trying to see if he can get some vision on that red buff. Maybe try and steal it away.
I love this patient playstyle from both teams. Snake Pit doing a good job of mitigating losses. They lost out slightly in the early, but now they're continually finding ways to keep it in there. They're trying to make sure that they don't fall too far behind. Genetics has been the target of a lot of aggression this game, but the peel has always been there. He hasn't fallen so far. Beltslap has really been trying to get aggressive almost all over the map. Every single time they're able to isolate someone in the jungle or find someone straggling in mid, and Snake Pit has responded very well every single time to make sure they aren't falling behind.
Right now, Beltslap trying to spot any weakness they can in this lineup, but Snake Pit have not shown any, aside from the one little misstep from Angry in the mid lane really early on to the game. Both of these teams have been doing really well to stay within position to be sure that they can stay alive as long as possible going into the late game. I mean, looking towards late game, because let's be honest, I mean, we're probably looking 30, 35 minutes with the way that this game is going. I mean, what is this? Who's got this late game advantage going forward?
Late game advantage, I want to give it to Beltslap just because they've got a lot more ways to stick around in team fights. Guan Yu healing on the side of Snake Pit isn't really the best out of combat healing option. It's really good in combat. So if Beltslap's able to disengage a fight after finding a pick or even getting picked themselves, they can heal with Yamoja. They can use Julio as this incredibly unkillable front line and his own self-sustain. They can use the healing from Chang'e as well to stick around in these fights and complete these dances around objectives. And we're honestly getting pretty close to the point where we might be able to see that come to fruition. Around that level 12 mark is normally when we see Belt Slap start to group up around the Gold Fury, try and force a fight, or at least try and get away with something sneaky. Whereas Snake Pit can do the exact same thing with a little bit more pressure. Merlin, one of the best objective burn gods, if Belt Slap ever slip away from one of these objectives and give Snake Pit a slight just opening, they should be able to burn away a Pyromancer or Gold Fury with ease.
Yeah, I think this is a really good point to make there, is having that Merlin, since they've been letting him freeform, he's able to get his items online, and as we all know, one of the best objective shredders in the entire game, especially in the mage department, having access to a ton of ability to deal it out. Genetics trying to get aggressive on his zeros, but the stuns out of Trixtank so massive to keep him at bay and keep zeros alive.
Yeah, very reactive playstyle from Trixtank right now, just making sure that his team's able to farm up to the late game. He's just there to keep his teammates topped up, make sure that Genetics isn't able to do what he was just trying to do, whereas Johnny, again, rotating in, maybe Belt Slap do want the fight.
It's going to be a miss of the Cobra's Kiss from Worcester, and that's their primary CC down. Wall with the double tap out of Johnny is going to put Genetics under half health. That's going to force him back. I'm surprised at that point they don't try and maybe pull the trigger there, because forcing the support that far back and knowing that Worcester had their escapes and CC down, that could have been a Fury pull.
It could have been, but just forcing out the Jingshan with all the HP 5 that he has, he's already healed up to about 80%. It makes sense to me that Belt Slap has been kind of controlling the pace of the game pretty well at this point. They've been controlling where the fights are happening, where they want to take these engagements. It makes sense to me that they don't want to go for anything risky, no coin toss. But that said, we were looking at what, 1,500, 1,600 gold in the lead. Belt Slap slip away to about 500.
And right onto the Fury they go, down to half health. The River's Rebuke. Genetics is looking for any way that he can get in. The wall is going to be good just to stop him for the time. And with the Riptide, all of Belt Slap will get out with the Gold Fury.
Fantastic awareness from Belt Slap. The second the Oracle Vision slips away from Snake Pit, Belt Slap sneaks in, slithers in, and steals away the first objective of the game, creating, again, that gold lead that they had earlier on. We're starting to get to that second relic slot for all the teammates as well. It's time to start using this lead to grow it even further. Now that Gold Fury's dead, Pyromancer should be on the mend.
I love the amount of control they're utilizing just even for a single Xing Chen. They know that he has potential to steal a buff. I mean, if he exists and he's nearby, he can steal a buff. So they're using any CC they can to try and keep Genetic Zone back to guarantee their farm for their mid laner.
I love this style from Belt Slap. It's their last true European team, I think, in existence. They love waiting it out. They want to just wait for that late game team fight that we so associate with them. Even though there have been a couple opportunities where Belt Slap look like they have an advantage in grouping or in positioning, they still aren't really looking for the engagements because they came into this match with a plan, and it was the plan for the late game. They're not deviating from it at all. Instead, just sticking to their guns and playing it incredibly well.
Interesting note that just got picked up there. Worcester went for a Shield of Thorns for their second relic, and looking at the build, going for a much tankier route. I mean, this kind of gives me vibes of the Circuit of old, where you would just build the Bruiser jungle comparatively to the just more glass cannon assassin.
Yeah, Circuit Glass Cannon almost doesn't exist anymore. It's a dying breed, extinct if you would, because the Bruiser style is so much easier to perform on. Circuit being so melee focused, having to sit in front of the enemies and also leaving yourself exposed for long periods of time. Once she decides to use the ultimate or the Cobra's Kiss into the first ability as well, it just locks her down in front of the enemy team. If you're a Glass Cannon, you usually just die, and her burst potential, although being there, isn't going to be mitigated too much by this tanky build due to the true damage of the ultimate.
Angry gonna take a big chunk from the Mjolnir's attunement, ultimate out of the Xing Chen, or Trixtank. He used the purification beads to get out of it, and Johnny will just dunk right back into the side and immediately disengage that fight.
Yeah, just very conflicted burst style from Belt Slap right now. We haven't really seen any side lane ganks from either team. The 3v3 in mid has largely just been, alright, let's throw out some poke. Oh no, someone's low health now, let's back up and heal. Both teams seem very comfortable waiting it out till late.
Oh, gonna get the Riptide into the stun right afterwards, but Angry's gonna get out, so River's Rebuke not gonna do anything for him. Johnny gonna miss the wall, but hit the double tap, forces out the mounted archery from Spudio, rotation in from Genetics, but with no ultimate, that's likely just going to be the end of the fight for them there.
Genetics getting a little bit saucy in the jungle, though, stepping a little bit too far forward for my liking. Notices of those 3 enemies, immediately turns on his heel and runs the other direction. Fantastic play from Spudio to make himself scarce in that situation. And Johnny isn't able to pick up a kill. But even then, both teams waiting till the late game. We said it earlier, I think that Belt Slap is going to have a slight advantage. I want to see more from Snake Pit in terms of proactive play. Worst Turtle in particular has been playing incredibly passively. We're talking 17 minutes into the game, 400 damage. That might just be a jump or a dash through somebody a couple seconds ago. It seems like this Circuit is scared to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, it's 17 minutes, that low a damage onto him. I mean, you can expect it out of a Jingwei. Jingwei doesn't want to fight in that duo lane. She wants to sit there and farm until late game comes, and then that 1,500 turns into 15,000 in an instant. But not out of a Circuit. You expect this to be more early game aggression, so I'm surprised how passively she's playing.
Wow!
Arkle is deciding to go very aggressive, and the dunk down from Johnny. The mind game out of Arkle to set up for the kill. Now Worst Turtle's going to try and get themselves in. Cobra's Kiss because he gets the purification beads out of Arkle, tosses him back. Wall and a shield of Thor. But the stun following up after Worst Turtle is in a bad spot. He's going to have to run away. And a failed gank out of the jungler from Snake Pit will set up an advantage for Belt Slap.
Man, Spudio had no options there except for don't lose half your health to Arkle running away before Johnny gets there. The second he was caught inside his own tower, he's going to fall to that dunk every single time. At least he had the wherewithal to maintain both defensive relics. Beads and Aegis are still going to be available for this next team fight, which should happen around the Primal Furies that respawns the next 20 seconds.
I mean, I'm just sitting here looking at, like, you know, the calculated face here. It's just like, all right, Spudio's sitting there thinking of every possible spot Arkle is going to drop back down out of that ultimate. But what he wasn't counting on was Johnny coming out of the sky and landing down on top of him instead. And Arkle just casually swoops on by and says, all right, well, thanks for the free kill for my jungler one more time. Now Johnny up 2-0 so far. And by the way, the only 2 kills. Mifflin, we were at, you know, what, like 20 kills in 20 minutes yesterday on some of our games. Now we're at 2 kills in 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's what it's like across the pond, J-Mac. They hate fighting over here. It's all about honor, the queen, all that good stuff. But instead, it's going to be about objectives now. Look at Snake Pit, nowhere in range to defend.
Fury blink over the wall from Genetics. He's going to use the ultimate to throw a couple of them. Belt Slap will get the Fury. And an ultimate out of Julio will just make sure that they can guarantee the secure onto spending those 2 ultimates. They don't want to continue that fight. They just want to go ahead and disengage yet again. And with that, the Fury and another fight in favor of Belt Slap.
You'll almost never catch Belt Slap sticking around for an engagement after the objective has fallen. I can almost hear zeros in my head right now. What are you fighting for? We already got the gold Fury. Let's get out of here. And it's the right call. Why risk something when you've already gained the goal? If the goal of each kill is to make it easier to pick up an objective, there's no point in fighting when you've already taken away the treasure.
Yeah, he's gonna get a little bit of poke on the Zeros, but nothing that Zeros can't just heal right back up with that Chunga, nothing that Trixtank can't heal him back up with that Yamojin. I mean, looking across the board as far as how they're going to deal with this healing-heavy composition out of Belt Slap, I'm seeing only a Divine Ruin and a Curse Donk. Curse Donk is gonna be nice, but I mean, this team is more than capable and more than happy what we've seen of just backing away, healing up, and then re-engaging.
Yeah, Snake Pit, though, has been playing so passively. I want to see them get more involved. Now, Johnny in the late game getting involved, finds Spudio on his own, burns away the beads and the life as well. Belt Slap in a fantastic position to move in towards his Pyromancer. 50 seconds left on this Hachiman respawn.
Now they're looking over at the Pyromancer, down to about half health. Genetics zoning out 2 of them, but everybody's going to back away from the Pyro and now go to defend their teammates, throwing Genetics against the wall. Riptide going to catch him after 1 leap, and the second Riptide into the River's Rebuke. Such beautiful placement of that ultimate and of those Riptides by Trixtank. That'll net them another kill. In just a minute, they've already doubled the kill count on the board. Might be going for more. Julio looking at Angry, but Angry's going to get right back into the tower, and that'll set up for the Pyromancer.
Pyromancer, Fire Giant. Yeah, this is the right call. They still got 20 seconds on Shen. The Hachiman hasn't spawned yet, and Julio has already set up a wall.
They're going to get off of the Fire Giant immediately, allow Taram to just sit there and do anything that he wants to. Ultimate out of Worst Turtle onto Arca, looking to the backline. Taram will fall, Arca up into the sky with the airstrike, and the Fire Giant has not been leashed fully. It's still sitting there being aggroed by the Belt Slap team. Julio running into the front line. No ult left for Worst Turtle. He'll have to retreat, and the Fire Giant leashed.
Snake Pit make a good decision there. Had they waited a little bit longer to try and attempt the steal, it would have almost certainly gone the way of Belt Slap. Because they engaged so early on, it forces Belt Slap to peel off. Terem using the cavalry charge to separate the back line. Worst Turtle using his tankiness from the build to be able to play in that back line as well. Makes it that much more dangerous for Belt Slap to stick around on the objective. But even then, we saw what the damage output looks like from Snake Pit in that engagement, and it's not too exciting. Belt Slap were able to just kind of walk around. Sure, they had to give up the objective, but there was no risk of losing a life.
We talk about walk around. Julio is just walking at Genetics and Worst Turtle. No fear on this solo lane Hercules, as he's so tanky, has so much HP to his name. And look how many bars of health that man has on this one god. The knockup just going to be a little off the mark there from Julio, so not going to be able to pull Genetics back into the team, but they're still trying to bait this Fire Giant fight. Trixie going to get knocked up by the line shot out of the Fire Giant. And that'll force him to be a little bit more careful. Julio going to get hit with a little bit of damage from Terem as well. And that'll force Belt Slap to back away, heal up.
And healing's something they have in spades. They shouldn't be worried about it at all. Julio can use his third ability. I mean, the Emoja heals as well as the Chang'e heals are going to keep him topped up every single time. If Belt Slap want to, they could send Julio in as a pawn on cooldown and see if he can find at least a little bit of damage or try and displace someone on the side of Snake Pit. If it doesn't work, back up, heal, try again, because it's that easy for them to keep weaving in and out of these engagements, because Snake Pit are still showing this hesitation to fully commit or look for a pick.
I tried to look for a pick there on Genetics, but luckily for him, he's just out of the range of that wall. And looking over to Julio's build, we mentioned all the health and healing that he has built into him. Talisman of Energy is a third item. Tell me a little bit more about that. We don't really see this item traditionally picked up.
You generally only pick it up for the passive. As far as stats go, there are plenty of magical defense items going to be able to do largely the same as Terem. Gets pulled out a little bit, separated by the wall as a split engagement happens in mid. Trix Tank caught under the tower.
Yeah, stopped by the minions as well. Body block from getting too far. Johnny up into the sky. The Riptide is going to come the wrong way, though. Genetics is going to get stuck under the tower. Stun just off the mark by Johnny. A couple of uncharacteristic misses by him, or I should say more like uncalculated baits by his team to throw damage the wrong direction. But everybody on Snake Pit going to make it out for the time being, but they're grouping up for this 5v5 in mid, and well, Belt Slap are way more healthy than Snake Pit at this point. Two players under half health to defend this tier 1.
Watch Worst Turtle on the side, though, sitting on top of that ward. It seems like Belt Slap are aware of his positioning. This is a good call from Belt Slap to go ahead and try out the siege. It's going to be much easier to do than picking up a Fire Giant, and this tier 1 tower, when it falls, should create a lot of space for Belt Slap to work around that Fire Giant in the future.
I mean, Trixang sat there and took about a quarter of his health from the tower and then instantly got it back. I mean, that's the power this Umoja Chang'e combo has. Boost the healing that is received by his teammates and give himself even more health back, plus that shield. He's more than willing to sit here and keep taking up this damage. Wall with the double tap. Genetics under half. It's going to be the Curse Dog pump into the Riptide. Genetics will take some damage. No ultimate available. The River's Rebuke is going to catch him out in the middle. And the stun right after. Trix Tank is going to pick up the first kill of the fight. And Julio surging forward looking for his next target. But he's going to miss the Earthbreaker. It looks like he's still just going to wait it around here. Trix Tank a little low in health though.
That Umoja ultimate was so perfectly placed to completely split the engagement. Three members of Snake Pit caught outside on their side of the map. Means that they can't get involved and help out Genetics in the backline. It was just Worst Turtle back there who had to immediately disengage. A 2 versus 5 situation is just awful. And now Belt Slap, having stripped away the tier 1 mid tower, have created so much more space for their team. I'll be excited to see where they decide to go. Johnny looks like he's going to split push a little bit, so this could make Snake Pit even weaker on the defense.
And right back to the objective they go. Well, we can't get Fire Giant because there's too much risk to it, so we'll just go ahead and grab another Fury. Third one of the game will go to Belt Slap off the plays in that mid lane. Able to get one pick. They get that tier 1 tower, and now they grab another gold Fury for themselves. I mean, Belt Slap have just been slowly crawling up in a lead. 6,000 gold in their favor.
not only slowly crawling up a lead, but also slowly winning out on these team fights. Is that sustain that we highlighted earlier on. And if you look at Snake Pit, I don't think they've done enough in terms of anti-heal to mitigate the strength of Belt Slap's draft. I would have liked to have seen an Onkers, something along those lines to make it easier to win out on the initial engagement. I'm just not seeing it from Snake Pit. There's not a quick enough adaptation to this draft, and Belt Slap are abusing them for it.
Oh, it's going to be a stun right off the knockup. Wurstturtle going to get CC'd. Take a decent bit of damage because of all that tankiness on the Circuit. He'll live to see another day, no problem. But, I mean, just in that last fight alone, they walk forward. Trixtang's at the front line. Genetic says, all right, Curstonk, let's go. Immediately turns around, 180 Riptides, gets out of the fight instantly. And all of a sudden, Belt Slap no longer have to deal with this Curstonk. Now all that's left to stop their healing is a singular Divine Ruin out of Angry, and I really just don't feel that's enough, Mifflin.
Yeah, Brawler's Beat Stick's a pretty good item. You know, that penetration, the ability to deal with healing. Toxic Blade's pretty good. There's a lot of options to deal with healing. And just having that one soul Onk, having that one soul Divine Ruin, it just doesn't feel like it's enough, especially considering every single time that Shanks has tried to engage one of these fights, it's the exact same situation. Either he falls, or he's forced to disengage immediately, and once your Jing Chen's running away, it doesn't matter if he hits all 5 members of Belt Slap with the Onk. No one's standing between them and the back line of Snake Pit. No one can take advantage of that small opportunity.
The Ward War so far in favor of Belt Slap for this Fire Giant Vision. They've got the Sentry Ward advantage so far, and still, once again, just playing it slow. I mean, this is... We've been saying it for 27 minutes. I mean, they're playing it slow, but they're slowly winning this game. I mean, that's 6,000 gold is now extended up to 7,000 gold. And like you said, they're slowly winning these team fights because nothing and no one on Snake Pit is able to deal with all of the sustain that they have.
And look how many towers are left on the side of Snake Pit. That's a 7,000 gold lead with 5 towers left up, with 3 Phoenixes left to burn. It's all off Gold Fury's Snake Pit. Let too many neutral objectives go in the early game. Let too many fights slip away. Belt Slap were given too much freedom to farm.
Just connecting to the back and throw a lot of damage with CC onto him. The mountain, or the cavalry charge out of Tarum is not going to do anything because the River's Rebuke is cutting off the path. The Curstonk is down. Johnny is down on top of Wurstturtle. Dunking down 3 massive forms of CC will hold down the Circuit. And they'll claim the first life of the fight. Genetics holding on to the ultimate the entire time. Johnny just going to drop in and throw in the baseball at him. Julio will pick up the second kill. Now Tarum is cut off from the rest of his team. He's forced to retreat under the tower. Don't have the bubble from Trixtang. They're not going to find anything more beyond there as far as kills go, but that will open up for the Fire Giant.
Unfortunate situation there for Genetics. Tries to blink in and peel out for Wurstturtle in the jungle. Got caught out isolated by Thor's ultimate, but blinks into a Jingwei updraft, immediately knocked up, and loses his life for the trouble. Wurstturtle doesn't even get the opportunity to use his ultimate in that engagement. Another bit of anti-heal that wasn't allowed to be used. Belt Slap not only win a fight handily, but walk away from the Fire Giant at all 5 members at 100% HP. Right side tower, gonna go down for free. 10 seconds left on Circuit. They might be able to sneak away with a Phoenix as well.
And that split pushing that Johnny was doing sets them up to be able to push in for this Phoenix now. They had the minion wave to take down the tower in an instant. Now they might be looking for even more. Tarum on the horse, drops down, is only going to get the stun. On the Trixtang, down to a quarter health. Ultimate in the back by Wurstturtle as well as Shield Storm. Probably been doing a lot of damage, and the pop will go through. The Hunter is down, and so is Trixtang. Espudio picks up 1 kill. A successful Phoenix defense so far for Snake Pit as they're able to hold off the members of Belt Slap and take down at least 2. Julio is under fire, though. He's going to be slowed down by the Blizzard, by the furious roar of Genetics. CC knocked up. The dash is good. Does he have enough movement speed with that shield of regrowth to get away? Blink as well. Who is catching this man? Not Snake Pit.
Yeah, Julio literally cracked, what is that, 10 separate ankles right there? 5 times 2, yeah, that's 10. 10 ankles, man. The local hospital's going to make a lot of money off of this one. Snake Pit, however, should be pretty happy with how that goes. Despite letting Julio make it out of that situation, they're able to strip away a tower, they keep their Phoenix alive, they take Fire Giant off of 2 members, and they've closed up the gold gap just ever so slightly. It's still 10,000 in favor of Belt Slap, but it's going to be much easier to defend subsequent Phoenixes now that Trixtang and Arkle aren't going to have Fire Giant. There's a lot of structure damage lost of the Hunter and a lot of sustain loss of the Emoji.
Yeah, this Bruiser build working out really well for Wurzel. You're talking about how potent it is once the late game comes, because you got to sit there in their face, and Wurzel able to sit there and absorb all that damage and throw Shield of Thorns onto it, reflecting it all back. And I mean, no amount of extra power is going to matter when it comes to that ultimate. I mean, it's true damage. Nothing is going to mitigate it. Nothing is going to make it do more or less damage. And that's all they needed to take down Arkle in that last fight.
Yeah, Arkle stood his ground for so long as well. Had he used the Jingwei ultimate immediately after being Surkat ultimate, I'm pretty sure he makes it out of there alive, but instead he trades a bunch of autos into Worst Turtle's Thorns, which creates a situation where he's just going to die to the poison inside the air. Luckily, it didn't spread, though.
Worst Turtle not too worried about the damage from that hammer out of Johnny. Opted for a last item defense with that Mantle of Discord alongside Julio. He's picked that one up as well. Kind of the staple last item that we've been seeing a lot. Even out of mages, we've been seeing this item picked up quite a few times as a means of defense for them. But Beltside grouping up. They're not going to let that last fight stop them. They still have 3 members of Fire Giant, 2 towers up on the map that they can take. And they're trying to find any kind of opening they can to get to this back line.
But Snake Pit are putting up a hard defense here. That's one of the double-edged swords of waiting this late in the game. Sure, you got 10,000 gold, but 32 minutes in, gold doesn't mean nearly as much. We're looking at just about nearly everyone. 6 items slotted in this game. Snake Pit can absolutely put up a defense here.
That now upgraded Shield of Thorns on the Worst Turtle is going to make it almost impossible at this point for Arkle to have a chance to box up against this Surkat. Like you said last time, is as soon as you see Worst Turtle pop in, now with that ultimate, Arkle has got to get out of dodge instantly, because otherwise he will be seeing his own death yet again.
Yeah, those thorns are just so hard to deal with for these hunter players, mage players too. If you're a carry and you're squishy, thorns is essentially the tank version of Aegis, except tank's Aegis at least does damage to the enemy team as well. Once Worst Turtle goes in, if he pops thorns, I want to see Arkle hiding in the air, just hover there, and then you can re-engage once it's off. I think after the thorns have been burned, there's really not much threat the Snake Pit draft has to deal with Belt Slap.
Back to the lull of the game as the Fire Giant is set to respawn in a minute, so no one's got the buff on them. But Snake Pit, just as healthy as they were the last one. They're still down, 10, 11,000 gold, but they're not worried about it. Everybody's level 20 aside from the support on their squad. Almost everybody is 6 slotted up. An extra Divine Ruin picked up by Genetics. A little bit of extra damage, but another form of anti-heal, so that way they can try and give Angry a little bit of help. Julio going to get hit by the ultimate out of Worst Turtle. I'm not sure that's the target that they wanted for it, as he gets out immediately.
But that is an important interaction. Now that Worst Turtle's ultimate is down, he's not going to be able to deal with Arkle nearly as well. Julio isn't going to be as safe, however, because he loses out on his beads. We've already seen, though, how survivable Julio is. I'm sure he's not too concerned about it. Anytime that an assassin is using their ultimate on a frontline tank is a pretty good situation. And I'm sure Belt Slap are going to be looking to exploit that as soon as Fire Giant respawns.
Julio and Trix playing the front line for Belt Slap as they get set up for this enhanced Fire Giant. But nobody's going to just willingly want to try and have a fight here at this Fire Giant pit. They're going to want to try and force something out of Snake Pit in order for Belt Slap to be able to get the Fire Giant for themselves, or on the counter flip for Snake Pit to try and go for a Fire Giant. They're going to start it up on the side of Belt Slap just to try and bait anybody from Snake Pit forward. It's going to be Worst Turtle and Genetic moving in. Julio's already down to half health. The ultimate out of Worst Turtle means that he's not going to heal anything back up. And their front line is gone. Solo laner out of the picture. Worst Turtle with the credit for the kill onto it. But it might be picking up Genetics in response as Arkle takes a shot and takes down the support. Great Riptide is going to hold Tarum in place. He's barely going to be able to get out with his own dash. And as far as the health bars go, advantage once again goes in favor of Belt Slap with all of that sustained.
That sustain's so potent, they can immediately get back into the engagement. Zeros blinks forward, finds Spudio, drops him down to about a quarter health. Terrorim on the retreat as well. Both of them got about 50% of an HP bar between the two of them. Snake Pit, it's going to be a while before they're healthy and ready to fight again.
And meanwhile, Belt Slap have 2 forms to sustain to keep themselves alive here in Trix Tank and Zeros. Johnny was under half health, and now he's already almost back up to full instantly with it. Just playing that zoning game on the Thor with that extra little bit of defense. He's a little tankier, so he can stay up a little bit further. Worst Turtle's going to be be the one to step forward alongside Tarum to tease the next tankiest member of the team. Onto the ultimate Word Turtle going up into the sky goes Johnny, looking for a target to dunk down on, but they've already taken out Arkle. Angry is the target for Johnny. The hammer is going to be enough things down. The mantle will stun out 3, but it won't be enough to save his life. Once again, they'll make another trade out, but it's a 2-1 in favor of Snake Pit.
Snake Pit is fighting so well around this Circuit ult. Every time Wurzel has the ultimate available, he goes in, he uses it, there's follow-up from his team every single time. Afterward, it seems like they're trying to disengage. Julio, unfortunately, was the first target of that aggression from Snake Pit. Steps a little bit too far forward, trusts that tankness a little bit too much.
We saw this yesterday out of Beltside, one of their games, where game 1 was a very slow-paced, 40-minute burner, and then all of a sudden they were able to just kick it into gear in the next game. I'm not sure how well that'll go for them through, but I mean, right now they're really not having the best time against Snake Pit. Into the back, Genetics gonna pick up 1 with the ultimate, but throws him right into the River's Rebuke. 2 caught inside of it. They're going to get hit by and a push into the tower by Julio will put 2 into the Phoenix. And they're not too worried about it. He's taking quite a bit of damage. The Phoenix going to get him the stun just off the mark, and so is the Earthbreaker, but Julio is chasing him down with all that extra movement speed. A leap out of Genetics will avoid the driving strike from Julio, but he's still got another knockback and right into the clutches of Zeros. Genetics will fall.
That is a huge pick, and if Julio can find another pool here, that should be enough to make Fire Giant a free interaction. Spudio losing out on the ultimate, being completely as well, is likely going to have to go back to base before he steps up for this defense. A little bit of an overzealous push from Snake Pit there results in the loss of Genetics and potentially the Fire Giant as well.
Starting it up, it is Enhanced Fire Giant. I'm certain they've only gotten 1 Primal Fury if that was the Fury they got earlier. They got a little bit of extra damage to go up against it. They're turning it down. It's under half, and nobody from Snake Pit is going to answer to this. I'm not even sure if they know that this is happening. They're about to know real soon when that notification goes off that an Enhanced Fire Giant has gone down. They're going to go for a consolation prize to the Oni Fury, but I think we know who got the real prize in this one.
It was a good decision, though, by Snake Pit. I'm not sure that they have any opportunity to throw up a defense around that Fire Giant. These fights have been on the knife's edge, so thin margins are what separate a win for a loss from both of these teams. Without their Genetics on their team being alive, I think Snake Pit make the absolute correct decision in going to Oni Fury. At least this way, they can split up Belt Slap, make it a little bit slower on this push, make them deal with those Oni minion waves before they can concentrate on a siege. And Snake Pit, they've not new to this situation in this game. They've been defending these tier 2s for a very long time, and this isn't the first time they've had to defend up against this Fire Giant. It will be the first up against Enhanced Fire. Now backdoor protections are going to be removed for Belt Slap, making it that much easier to find a way to push in. But I think Snake Pit show good discipline there, not getting a little bit trigger happy, instead playing for the win.
At this point, defending a tier 2 doesn't necessarily seem worth it, though Snake Pit have been more than happy to do so, and we saw it earlier on at the jungle skirmish. But when it comes down to the Phoenix defensive core, I mean, what is Snake Pit's opening to potentially turn this game around for them?
The defense has been good. We've seen now what strategy works for Snake Pit. It is really playing around Worst Turtle's ultimate and immediately followed up. It's that initial engagement. It's the exact same strategy that the majority of SPL teams like to use against healer drafts. If you can win the fight cleanly in the first 10 seconds, it doesn't matter how much out-of-combat healing they have, you can't heal someone that's in the Shadow Realm.
Genetics looking for Zero. It's going to get the seat onto him, up onto the Cavalry. Tarum looking for 1. River's Rebuke to hold them back. Genetics gets knocked up. He's so low in health. Johnny looking for a target into the back. Won't be able to find him because the blink is good. Arkle able to get out of dodge, but Johnny will find Genetics after chasing him down into the back line. And that'll be 1 down on the side of Snake Pit. Only 1 ultimate left on either team for Julio and Spudio, respectively. Gonna get the beads out of Johnny, though, just because that Cobra's Kiss stuck inside that Blizzard. Julio gonna pick up Tarum, but nothing more to be gained from there. That Enhanced Fire Giant, they're more than happy to push right into the tier 2 tower.
40 seconds left on Xing Shen, no ultimate on Circuit, no ultimate on Guan Yu. This is going to be a hard-fought defense for Snake Pit. Belt Slap have a huge opportunity here.
Julio gonna zoom right into the backline to Angry. He recognizes that's where they need to zone away, and with them able to do so, left side Phoenix gone instantly. No defense for Snake Pit out of it just because Julio, I mean, he just race card into the back line. with that extra movement speed he's getting from that shield of regrowth. Ultimate out of worst turtle. Now Julio has nothing else to worry about.
Nice.
And Johnny has no fears as he goes into the back line, and he'll
Wow.
take down Angry with the double tap after the wall. That's a second one down, but Genetics is back up. Nobody's focusing on to the Phoenix. They're just looking to get out because they still have that tier 2 tower up. Now that that is down, they can finally look to the Phoenix. Diving still there with the tower. Pretty a little zealous there. Fine belt slap right into the back line. Zeros will go, and Spundio just gets erased the instant he's looked at. Feels out of Zeros is more than enough to claim his life. Therum under half health. Genetics at the back being taken down by the carries. Julio trying to look for anything that he can. Johnny gonna get hit by the Cobra's Kiss along with Julio with the Titan exposed, and 5 healthy players out of belt slap. It's looking like game 1 is gonna go the way of the boys in blue. Worst Turtle pushing forward as well. Terror on the boulder is out, and that'll be enough to take the life of the jungler. Julio picks up one more before the end of the game, as well as Zeros. And after 42 minutes of back and forth, slow-paced action, belt slap will finally claim game number 1.
Look, I gotta make a correction there, J-Mac. 30 minutes
Okay.
of controlled, easy action for Belt Slap into 10 minutes of, oh my god, are Snake Pit gonna do it? Can they do this? And it looked like they could. And then those hopes were immediately dashed around the enhanced Fire Giant. I want to see Snake Pit make the adjustment in Game 2 to play a little bit more proactively in the early game, trying to exploit what your draft is good at. There's no reason your Cirquette should have 400 damage 20 minutes in. Her gank potential at level 5, just at level 5, is some of the best that any assassin could bring.
I mean, between Cobra's Kiss and literally being able to jump on their back and throw them away as long as their beats aren't there, I mean, that, to me, spells everything that you could want in a rotation and in a gank from a jungler there. But that's all we have here for game number 1 on to. We're going to take it to a quick break. When we come back, the desk will break that down.
Set, go.
Well, Belt Slap managed to take game number 1 here as we start with our first set of the day. It takes them 42 minutes, though, so not necessarily an easy one at that. Gormizer here, once again alongside me. It's going to be none other than Kiki. And Kiki, This is the second time that we've seen Belt Slap pushed to a very long distance. They had it in their first set. They go, I think it was about 41 minutes. This one goes 42 minutes. And this one was 30 minutes of control, 10k gold lead, really well, methodical, thought-out play from Belt Slap, and then 10 minutes of I don't know what's happening till they find a win at the very end. I mean, what is the turmoil? It starts all around that right Phoenix. What is it that Snake Pit do that all of a sudden kind of turned this on its head?
Well, I feel like their building path was a bit too safe. I did see that Zerhos had a soul gem, so they had a lot of healing already, and I guess he wanted another healing item.
I need more.
But that made it. That made it for on their Phoenix. They just didn't have enough damage to burst anyone down, and we actually saw Snake Pit's their comp was still a viable comp. It finally did come through. They started team working properly. The Circuit did more damage than 400 damage at that point, which I did want to touch on. I think it shows that maybe they just weren't that comfortable going up against the Yamoji Changa. Didn't feel like he had many opportunities to get in there, maybe?
Yeah, it was very kind of slow from the jungle. Honestly, up until the very end, it was a slow game. I mean, 2 kills in 20 minutes, and then things started to pop off for a little bit. Even still, you can see here at the end, I believe it was, what, 20 kills total, maybe 21, if I missed one at the very end. And so that's the thing that really, I think, stands out, is that these teams were very careful about it. And when you are that careful, you can see where the benefit goes. I mean, like you said, Worst Total goes 3-2 and 2. That's not a bad slash line. But when you compare it to Johnny and Zero's going 6-1 and 8 and 4-0 and 9 respectively, you can feel that slow pace really paid off more for Belt Slap.
Yeah, and you can look at genetics. He went 0 and 6, but that is not due to his bad play. He was actually creating a lot of space, dodging a lot of things. Jing Chen has 2 immunities. But when you're the only one getting in there, you know, your jungler's not trying to help you out. It's just really hard to create an opportunity. So, Worst Turtle, maybe not so comfortable on the circuit, seeing other people favor it, made him want to pick it himself. But maybe just look to play something that you know you're going to do well with.
Yeah, something you got to factor in there. I mean, 35,000 healing. I have to add that 10 in there as well that comes through on the side of Belt Slap versus what I believe was like 12,000 on the other side. I mean, more than double, almost triple the same amount of healing. That's hard to break through. So I think that's where, at least for me, if I'm looking at the next game, maybe I want to start slicing down at least Yamoja, maybe some of the other healers as well. But that Guan Yu, even though he's been very prominent, I think very good here as well. We'll have to see if they stay up and high priority here as we go into picks and bans for game number 2. So what I would say is, outside of immediately in my mind, especially if you're Belt Slap since your second pick, banning Yamoja, what other changes do you want to see maybe Snake Pit make that could take a 42-minute game and turn it back into their favor?
Well, Snake Pit probably wants to favor the early game. We did see them come through in the late game, but if they can just get some sort of footing in the early game, maybe they can actually snowball the game. We see the Yamoja ban, which I'm very glad to see that. It's just so impossible to get things done. They're going to stick to the Sobek ban, though, so I guess Trix Tanks really just feared on that Crocodile.
I think that's just the truth of Belt Slap, and insert pick here is like, you know, you see the Kali. Sorry. You see the Kali, and it comes through, and it's like, man, I guess Johnny's just feared on the Kali, and it's like, it's a very late game pick. If this is going to go the way I described it, about 20 minutes in, I think I sat back and I said, this is the most European game of Smite we have watched this weekend, and it is, you know, methodical, and I feel like Kali would have been perfect. She was unbanned last game and unpicked, but now that it's banned away, I'm a little sad because part of me wanted to see her. If it's going to go 42 minutes, I want to see a 42-minute Kali. That's just insane. But Persephone, Hell, banned out over there by Belt Slap. The Apollo joining that Sobek and Kali up there. It seems like Snake Pit are taking shots directly at Belt Slap for this one.
Yeah, 3 target bans coming out of them. A little weird. They must really have confidence in this Guan Yu pick. The only thing for me that Guan Yu doesn't do the best at is dealing damage. So if the rest of your team isn't getting in there, if your Circuit's not getting in there, then Guan doesn't do enough by himself. He's better used to shred and just supply some sort of support for your team. But you still need a hard carry to make sure that you can get some kills.
That's the thing, yeah, like you said, they were kind of missing. I mean, Guan Yu, he does the healing, he can CC, he can initiate, he can peel, he has protection shred. Like, there's a lot of good things in that kit. But like you said, killing people isn't necessarily one of them that he's known for. But one of the things that was banned, actually two of the things that were banned last game, Snake Pit were taking care of them then, was this Rom and this Khepri, although I believe it was Belt Slap. And Khepri has just kind of been resurgent. I'm sure Avrin in chat is having the time of her life seeing this much Hugbug in a weekend, because he has been, I mean, just essential to so many drafts lately. Is it just because of the res, or what else does he bring that really makes him that prominent?
Well, as you called it, the Hugbug, I mean, when you have an ally that can res you and hug people, hug the enemies and leave you safe, then you're feeling good. You have a Rama, you already have a hard carry. Once you get that attack steroid online, your autos are going to be chunking. And we do see that they ended up going for the same draft, Guan Jing Circuit. So I'm going to guess that this is something that they've been practicing. They do have a great amount of CC. But for me, this Chang'e is so crucial. It gives them another heal, and the immunity just makes it really hard to punish Chang'e.
And it's maybe stripping this down to way too basic than it should be, but I see Chang'e, I think healing, I see Khepri, I think res. I mean, essentially you take two parts of what make Aphrodite really good and then strip them onto two characters that can then do other stuff on top of it. It makes things a little interesting for Belt Slap, I think, over here. And like you said, this has been essential. Where's that Circuit? I mean, it was the first thing you highlighted. This Guan Yu is good. It had a lot of setups. Same thing for Xing Chen. But if Circuit's not as active early on, does it really matter if she's not getting the damage out there? It'll be up to, I guess, the mid as well as the carry for Snake Pit as the bans come through. Ra, Cupid taken away by Belt Slap. Both very, very prominent top-tier picks in both of the roles they're looking for. So good bans over there. As well as the Bakasura and the Nike. Johnny taking a seat one more time. Belt Slap also in a position where they need a solo laner and also their jungle. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe put that jungle down towards the end and just, yeah, go ahead and get Julio on something comfortable. I mean, right now, they're changing up a little bit, but I would argue, honestly, only for the better. The only downside is maybe Khepri for Yamoja, but even then, the scales, I don't know, Kiki, they don't seem like they're shifting too heavily.
Right, the idea is still the same. Kepri's going to sit back as a Yamoja would, just sort of create opportunities for their team, keep letting the jungler. We saw Johnny playing lights out. His Thor was creating a lot of pressure. Having any sort of semi-global always puts the enemies at a will they, won't they, are they coming on us? It's just really hard to know if you can sit back. So you definitely want to make sure that you're getting proper vision. And I like the Jingwei pick over the Hachiman. Jingwei is just so hard to really punish. You can fly back to lane. And with the Merlin, we did see some great damage coming out of the Merlin. So yeah, it's okay that they picked it.
It's almost an exact run back from Snakebait here. I mean, Merlin, Circuit, Xing Chen, Guan, that was 4 of their 5. The only thing they've changed is, like you highlighted, the Hachiman for the Jingwei here. So that's going to be an interesting draft. I mean, you get almost the exact same thing for Snakebit and almost the exact same thing for Belt Slap. Does enough change in this draft on the side of Snakebit that you think they can go forward? Was most of it execution of the draft, or did you want some other picks to come through?
Well, I mean, it's a salty EU run back, so honestly, what I'm going to be looking at for is, can Circuit get some sort of plays going in there? We did see Genetics trying to make it work, but we need Worst Turtle to try to help him out. But the Johnny on the Thor again, you're giving him a lot of options.
Yeah, there's a lot, I think, to go up against. Belt Slap win the first one in 42 minutes. They're running pretty much the same draft. Let's see if they can do it a little bit quicker, if Snake Pit can turn things around.
We'll see if they can turn this one around for sure here. Going with 4 out of the 5 same gods and looking to try and maybe get the flip thrown onto them. Last time it was Snake Pit trying to make this level 1 gank. This time it's Belt Slap taking a page out of their book. And Mifflin with 7 out of the 10 gods from last game picked up into this game. Is that little bit of adjustment enough for Snake Pit to maybe take this second game?
I don't think Snake Pit lost in draft. I think Snake Pit lost in mentality in the early game. You can't let 20 minutes slide by and you have not done anything proactively. So I think that it's fine that Snake Pit are running a salty run back. And Beltslap won, so of course I don't care that they're playing largely the same gods either. I just want to see a shift in mentality. I want to see an aggressive playstyle. Kiki alluded to it on the desk right there. We saw Genetics constantly looking to try and do something for his team. We need to see the exact same from Worst Turtle in the early.
Yeah, I feel that Worst Turtle doing, like you said, 400 damage in almost 20 minutes. As a jungler, especially one like Circuit, that's not something you just get away with doing. Genetics trying to disrupt them at this Alpha Harpy, but not really successful in doing so. Spudio, however, hit level 2, dives right in onto Arkle. It's going to put him down to about half health. He's got a couple of potions to take up heal back. I like the aggressive play coming out of this duo lane this time.
Yeah, Genetics makes that play because he knows how much HP 5 Xingqian gets from his passive. He says, okay, well, I'll trade out half my health bar. I'll be done healing it back up by the time the waves meet again. And he was right to do so. He's already back to 100%. Spudio gets a slight advantage for himself as well, having soloed about half of that first wave, meaning that he's going to tick over to level 3 around the time that the enemy ADC Arkle is going to be around 2.5. It's a good start for him. It's a good use of that early aggression.
Now, I know they didn't really lose the game in the draft, so it's mostly the mentality, but do you think that giving Beltslap 3 of the same gods who they were really performing well on, I mean, a Hunter is kind of a Hunter when it comes to that late game, do you think that just taking only really the Yemoja away from them was going to be enough for it?
Yemoja is a huge tool lost, right? I'm make no qualms saying that I think Yemoja is the best god in Smite right now. The out-of-combat healing, the ability to chain CC, and one of the best ultimates in the game for displacement and just picking someone out. She's absolutely fantastic, and I didn't even touch on her mobility and the mobility she affords her team. So switching Yemoja off is always going to be something good that Snake has done here, but even then, Tricks Tank on a Khepri, this man is so adept at this character, and already we're seeing the pressure he's bringing.
I mean, they had the level 1 and level 2 pressure, but now they're the ones being pushed right back to the tower. Arkle gonna force the beads out of Spudio, and Genetics is forced to the back as well. Again, it's a flip side of, oh, well, we got the upper hand on him in the first minute or so, but why are we the ones under our tier 1 tower at 2 minutes?
It's just Tricks Tank. Every single time Genetics steps forward to try and find poke and use the lead, Tricks uses Abduct, and Arkle's choosing his targets wisely. They can't continue the aggressive playstyle, Snake Pit that is, because they keep trading out too much of their health bars. Beltslap, on the other hand, have been able to maintain just a calm playstyle. They've found the pressure, they've gotten it back. Spudio's lead has largely been mitigated as well, and now Beltslap are in a position where they can threaten invading this purple, threaten invading the Alpha Harpy, and force Snake Pit's jungler to respect it.
Arkle just gonna nice and calmly clear that wave up. He'll take a little bit of poke from Spudio from that persisting gust, but he's not too worried about the continued fight there, and looks like Tricks Tank is kind of content with sitting back as well. Needs to regen some of that mana up. He's been very ability heavy, but Genetics is out of mana at the moment. Tricks Tank looking for a target. It looks like his Abduct is already down for the moment. Won't be able to continue that any further.
I love this playstyle. Now, Johnny ticking over to level 5. I'm glad that Doug decided to hover the camera on him. Now that he's on this left side of the jungle, we've seen now that Snake Pit is willing to play aggressive, at least Genetics is. If Johnny's able to rotate over and find a gank, that'll be huge for his team. Worst Turtle clearing out the purple there. It's a little bit of a ranked tilter, right? When you're playing Hunter and your jungle just comes over and zones you off your own purple. Spudio, now not having received any of the experience for that, has completely lost the lead that he has over Arkle. It's only about maybe a half level early because he got to solo out that first wave. Losing that experience means that Arkle's completely caught up.
And then not just that, I mean, Worst Turtle making that rotation, just getting the purple means that he wasn't able to apply pressure elsewhere on the map. And like you said, they're actually removing some of that pressure that they could have gotten back. Spudio at least will hit level 5. I imagine Ark will be close behind since he did get credit for that purple. Taking that wave all the way back to the tower. I mean, love the play there from Beltslap, forcing Snake Pit to their side of the map.
Yeah, it's almost a fake, right? When you see someone try and freeze the wave at tower line and you have a Thor on your team, Spudio's probably thinking in his mind, okay, Johnny's over here somewhere, because Belts or Snake Pit rather don't have vision on him, and so they have to play a little bit more concerned. Spudio steps forward though, because he's got that airstrike ultimate, that additional layer of safety. He doesn't have to worry about it too much. I love that style from Belt Slap. Like, I'll take it to the tower line. Now they don't know where Thor is. Thor hovering the solo side of the map means that if Terrorem listens to the calls, like Spudio says, hey, I think Thor's over here, Terrorem might step up and create an opportunity for Johnny to look for a gank.
Well, the Devourer's Gauntlet's finished up by Spudio. He's going to rush into those ones before his boots. And up into the sky is Johnny looking for Terrorem. Terrorem's able to dash away for the time being. Knock up, stopped by the wall, but into the driving strike. Terrorem at half health, looking for any damage they can. And the baseball boulder out of the solo laner will pick up first blood for Belt Slap.
Insane mind games, man. Terrorem did step forward there. I'm sure he thought, okay, well, Johnny's probably on the left side. Unfortunately for him, Johnny was on the right, and so is Trixtank, as an easy first blood for the Belt Slap boys.
Two-man Root getting him stuck inside the damage as well. Trixtank gonna get thrown back, but now Genetics with no ultimate. Up in the sky is Arco looking for some snipes, but he's not gonna be able to find anything. With it, diving under the tower. At 5 minutes is Johnny. No fear from the jungler. Picks up their second kill.
1,000 gold in the lead, 6 minutes in. Is that a little bit of deja vu? I think so. But Belt Slap have already shown a much more aggressive style. That's an early aggressive rotation from Trixtank. And I think it's all around the fact that they don't have that Yamoja anymore.
Terrorem is just getting bullied by Julio. That push under the tower doing a lot more than he thought it would. Johnny rotating over, looking like he wanted to maybe clean up another kill, but that is ultimate and a little bit low on mana. He'd be potentially throwing his life away going for that gank under that tower, so he'll think better of it. He's looking for any kind of farm he can in this jungle.
He is now worse. Turtle hovering around, see if he can find something proactive here. And again, this Surcat has been largely inactive in the early game. I don't think we've seen a Surcat ultimate yet. No attempted side lane ganks. And Arkle isn't worried about it at all. He's keeping Spudio on his tower line, which is going to create this constant threat of where is Johnny? Terrorem being ganked twice now is going to force him to feeling a little bit more cowardly in his lane. He won't be feeling nearly as confident, looking for trades into Julio, who's already established a 1-level lead. Belt Slap have created so much mental pressure on the map. I think the only place Snake Pit can feel confident looking for a fight is in the 3v3 in mid.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Arco right now is living in his best and worst case scenario of, oh man, Jingwei's just getting to sit here alone in lane and farm. Well, it's either that or they sit alone in lane and farm the entire game. And right now, Arco is probably perfectly happy with that. As long as he gets the farm, Spudio's farming, nothing they need to worry about. So it's all going to come down to really the junglers. I mean, Johnny has shown that he wants to be aggressive, but I haven't seen the same out of Worst Turtle in his first 7 minutes.
And normally the trade-off is, if you don't want to play an aggressive jungle style, because Johnny is constantly looking for ganks, Worst Turtle would normally be able to pull ahead in experience, but because of the effective splitting from Belt Slap, the sharing of farm through the waves as well, Johnny hasn't even fallen behind in XP.
They're looking for something else here. Jake's going to take a little bit of poke from this Chunga and Khepri. Trixtank with another form of long-range CC. Last time it was the Moonblast stun, this time it's the Root. Out of the Khepri. Worst Turtle now looking to get aggressive here onto Johnny. He's going to get stunned out. Ultimate immediately to get himself out of there. He's not going to want to take any extra damage more than necessary. So Johnny gets out. Worst Turtle with his first real proactive play in the first 20 minutes of either game.
That was a good attempt as well. Johnny nearly falls. Had he been able to proc the passive, Surcat likely would have been able to pick up a kill there. That's heads up, plays off the sound of Belt Slap, or Johnny rather, using his abilities on that jungle camp as well. A nice attempt, unfortunately goes unrewarded.
Now full Jotun's Wrath online for Johnny, so he's got that extra CDR for more ultimates on that Thor, and we know he's not shy of using those to try and start up any kind of fight possible. Trixtank gonna de-ward over here on this right-hand side by the Alpha Harpy. Not something you typically see a ward war go over for, but regardless, the Alpha Harpy will go the way of Spudio, side of Snake Pit. The farm game still slightly in favor of Belt Slap, about 800, 700 gold in their favor.
is, and Belt Slap again controlling the pace, but this is the exact replicant situation that we saw in game 1, where Belt Slap were controlling the kills, but they weren't quite able to establish a very large lead in the early game. It doesn't seem like they're necessarily trying to blow them out in the early. This isn't Ghost Gaming, this isn't Andinster's team. This is exactly what we expect to see from European Smite, a slow, calculated playstyle, very objective focused, looking for opportunities where it feels like it's a 10-0 matchup when they find someone slipping up in the jungle. That's something Belt Slap is uniquely good at, and they're still looking to make use of that right now.
I mean, in our last game, the first 20 minutes, more objective spell than enemy players in that game. Genetic looking for something here. He's going to throw one into the tower, into the sky. Goes Arco just to get himself away from the ultimate. He's going to have to use his own res. Tricks tank Johnny into the back lane for Genetic to Spudio with the airstrike. We'll find the kill onto the support. Johnny still has that hammer, but misses off the mark. Snake Pit finally puts themselves on the board in this first game. And Worsertle diving in. The purification beads going to fall off of Johnny, and that'll be a fall onto the jungler. Angry picks up the kill with the Blizzard.
Uncharacteristic play from Johnny there. Misses the ultimate, misses the wall, misses the hammer. Just an unfortunate situation and a fantastic counter rotation from Snake Pit, sending the mid laner and the jungler to turn that into some free kills. Johnny uses the beads as well, trying to escape, doesn't get any use of it, so he's going to have to play it incredibly safe around these next couple engagements.
Julio still being the bully here into the solo lane. We don't really talk much about these two solo laners in this early game, and that's because really nothing happens between them. We saw the one gank early on to give Julio the slight advantage in lane, but outside of that, it's pretty much just going to be whenever they decide to leave their lane and join the team fights, we'll start hearing more out of those two. For now, Johnny and Worsertle, the two controlling this early game.
They are, and so far, Worsel's looking much better in this game too. He's been getting involved, he's been looking for counter ganks, attempting invades. He's looking a lot more comfortable as well. And on the reverse, Johnny, with that one uncharacteristic misplay, has created an opportunity for Snake Pit to completely close the gap. What was 1,000 gold just 2 minutes ago is now a completely even game.
I mean, Worsertle only improved his player damage by 4 times what he had in the last game, even 8 minutes later into it. So I'd say Worsertle's definitely doing much better in this second game. Finally has found his stride in the circuit. We did see, as the game went later on, he was finally starting to figure out what he wanted to do with the god and getting those picks onto Arco, getting those picks onto Johnny and whatnot. But now we're finally seeing him do it in the early game where he really needs that to try and put this Belt Slap team behind.
And he chose a good time to start getting involved as well. He's already hit some pretty important power spikes. The sledge already picked up, moving immediately to the Void Shield. He's got a lot of survivability, and he's still not going to be lacking in terms of damage at this point. Not much defense has been developed on the side of Belt Slap. So for right now, Worsertle might even be one of the strongest members on the map.
Tarum looking for a pincer maneuver with the rest of his team onto Zeros and Johnny. The hammer is out, and so is Johnny and Zeros. They'll make sure to get away from that one. I like the attempt there by Tarum. Maybe played their hand a little too early. Double tap onto Genetics. Heals about a quarter of his health. He's not too worried about it. It's a Xing Qian. He'll be able to heal that right back up.
But they do get Zero's beads in that situation, which is, again, going to create an opportunity for Worser to look for a gank, or Tarum wants to rotate again. Or, worst case scenario, you can see Snake Pit just go back to farming and be rest assured that Belt Slap likely aren't going to look for any aggressive plays until Zeros gets those beads back up. So I agree with Tarum going immediately for that stun, just creating that threat, forcing Zeros to use his defensive relics.
And anything you can do to give Angry an easier time in this mid lane, now level 14, a level and a half ahead of his opposition, where last game he was about a level and a half down at this stage of the game. So Angry having a much better time in this second game compared to how he performed in game number 1. Still put out a lot of damage in game number 1. Don't confuse that for, oh, he was down, he wasn't doing well. He was doing just fine for the situation he was in, but now he has an even better situation that he's in.
And we're moving into that point of the game where both teams are starting to tick over to level 12, the secondary relics are coming online, supports are rapidly approaching 12 as well, which is going to mean that Gold Fury is really going to be the next thing on everyone's mind. How are we going to create an opportunity to move into that? How are we going to create the space? Now, I think for Snake Pit, it's in the 3v3 in mid. For Belt Slap, it's through the side lanes, likely through a gank on John, or through Johnny, onto Spudio or onto Terraram to move into either Pyro or Gold Fury, or Belt Slap are just going to walk straight at it.
I noticed that both these mid laners have really liked going for the soul gem. Is it just the god choice? Is it maybe the item itself that they're really favoring over some of the other, more favorable lifesteal items?
I got to speak with Zeros on APAM's talk show, and he said that he really likes Soul Gem just for the utility of it. The cooldown is nice, 10%, so you're not overcapping later on. It's a pretty easy to pick up item, as well as it's just a really good way to throw people off their groove. Because that additional healing you get through the passive might adjust how Snake Pit are able to approach the fight, or how Belt Slap are able to approach the fight. Because just a random heal means that your burst calculations might be slightly off and create an opportunity for misplay.
And a little bit with that extra burst of damage that you get from it too. Like, oh, I only took 300 from it the last time I got hit. I should be able to survive one more hit, and then it hits you for 350, and you went, oh, well, that's not what I thought was going to happen. So I can see where Zeros is getting at with the mentality onto it. It's an item that I felt was maybe a little under-purchased in the last couple of phases, but now we've been seeing a huge resurgence of it in this, specifically in this fourth phase of gameplay.
We have, but you know what we haven't seen in the second game here? I'm not seeing enough anti-heal coming through from the Snake Pit. I know that Versatile really wants to run this bruiser identity. He wants to be tankier, but I would love to see a Brawler's Beat Stick get picked up. I want to see the Contagions, the Pestilences, the Onks, everything to deal with this healing. Sure, we're lacking the emoji that Belt Slap had last time around, but there's still a Hercules on this team. There's still a Chang'e. There's a lot of healing. Lifesteal from Arkil, the Soul Gem as well. I think there are things that you need to deal with, and so far, Snake Pit hasn't done enough to my liking.
Yeah, last game, even with the emoji, it felt like they didn't have enough. They picked up a second Divine Ruin with Genetics the last time around, but even still, that wasn't enough to kind of combat the healing that was going on during this fight. So maybe that second form of anti-heal out of Worst Turtle, or even just the aura anti-heal you get from Contagion or Pestilence, might be enough to trickle in their favor this game, since, like you said, they're now down one Umoja.
They are, and now both teams have been hovering around this gold tree ever so slightly, just waiting for an opportunity. I'm keeping my eyes on Johnny at almost all times, because I think that's really where it's going to be the differentiating factor on this fight. He's going to be the initiator. That Anvil of Dawn is such an important cooldown right now, because either team, if Snake Pit finds a pick, if Belt Slap finds a pick, it's likely going to result in the gold tree to finally separate this game.
Johnny's playing a little further back and just playing patiently on this Thor, waiting for an opportunity. Sitting 1-1-1. This time we're at a 2-2 game, where last time around we were around still 2-0 at this stage of the game. This time it's Snake Pit who want to be the first ones to aggress onto an objective. They're going to kind of bounce it back and forth a little bit between their players. Trixtank looking for something to steal, trying to go through by Arkle, but it's going to be a little too late. So Snake Pit do get the first objective of the game in the Gold Fury. Tear him on full retreat. Johnny dunks down onto nothing with his ultimate, just going for a defensive escape this time around.
Such a slow rotation from Belt Slap. They were in position to contest. Instead, it seemed like a calculated decision. Let's attempt the steal. Let's not try and fight him here. Arkle goes up in the air. Johnny remains grounded for the majority of that engagement as well. It just feels strange that they were willing to let that one go.
And Arkle got the Aegis, he's got the Kepri revive to try and keep him alive as well for as long as possible. He'll roll away in enough CC, and stops with that wall will be enough to get Arkle out of danger. A lot expended to keep that Hunter alive.
Man, Scarab's Blessing is so hard to deal with there. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If they knock him out, it would have teleported him to Trixtank, who only walked in because they knew they wouldn't kill Arkle in that situation. So there's really no way that Snake Pit can get that easily, especially with the rotations from Chang'e, from Johnny as well, to make sure that he gets out of that situation alive. Fantastic play from Belt Slap to make sure that their ADC doesn't fall there.
They expended, what, 2 blinks and 3 ultimates to try and get him. Yeah, they got both the defensive relics out of Arkle, and they got the ult out of Trixtank. Those are massive cooldowns to get off of that one, but I mean, just the defensive mindset that Belt Slap immediately put themselves into after that Fury. I mean, it just shows that even though they make their one slip up, they're right back onto their gear, and they're ready to ride through into the next however many minutes this game goes. Because I'm being honest here, it's looking like we're getting another long one here, Mifflin.
Yeah, I'm thinking so as well, J-Mac. And just to further emphasize your point, Gold Fury fell, but we're only looking at, what, like 1,000 gold, if even, a little bit less, 800 separating these two teams. But I mean, Belt Slap's not feeling too bad about it. That was a standard Gold Fury as well, not a Primal, not an Oni, so no additional effects were afforded to Snake Pit, which means Pyro and Fire Giant are going to be just as hard to kill in the future. I think, if anything, Snake Pit create a situation where Belt Slap can't take gold, which means that both teams are going to go back to farming. So I guess we have to evaluate which one is going to have a stronger late game team fight. And I think I still value Belt Slap despite the lack of Umoja because of their sustain and this unwillingness from Snake Pit to really itemize towards anti-heal.
And I think having that 6th man via the revive out of Kepri is also a pretty nice factor for them. Tarum, not sure what he's doing all the way back here at the tier 2 tower on Belt Slap's side, but he's got everybody rotating over to him, using the cavalry charge to try and get away. The blink is not going to be enough up in the sky as Arco looking for a couple of snipes, but Johnny will be the one who ultimately seals the deal. Meanwhile, everybody else on Snake Pit, they're going to turn their sets to the tier 1 towers of mid and left.
They do pick up both towers. That's a decent trade for Snake Pit, but Tarum going for the proxy farm between tier 1 and 2 is so strange. Normally Soul Laners do that because they want to rotate towards the Gold Fury on the opposite side of the map. Gold Fury being dead already, there's really no reason he had to. If he wanted to rotate towards the mid fight, just clear the way safely.
Angry, gonna have to use his bees immediately, but now he doesn't have it for the push back. Bees out of Julio, and the Boulder immune out by the Aegis. Angry doing everything he can to keep himself alive in the midst of 4, but Zeros will have enough to clean it up. Trickstank's gonna ult himself to try to stay alive, and it will get popped into the mid. But now he's on the wrong side of the wall by Johnny, but he's able to squeeze by Zeros with a double kill in the midst of all of the chaos, and that's gonna force out the airstrike. Out of Spudio, now Genetics left alone under the tier 2 tower, nowhere to run, shoved against the wall and beaten down by Johnny. That's another kill for the jungler, puts him at 3 and a tier 2 tower as a final prize.
Yeah, one misplay from Tarum results in all of that. If Guan Yu doesn't get picked there, there's no way Belt Slap feel confident enough to group up his 5 and just siege down a tower from 1,000 gold down, by the way. Now that the tier 2 has fallen, Belt Slap has completely reversed the lead and they're already on the fire.
Starting it up, Tarum is on the front line, has that ultimate, will go straight into it along with the Thorns, and that's going to be the call for everybody to get off of the fire gun. They're like, okay, thanks for the ultimate, thanks for the relic, right back to the fire they go, as it's under half health already. Tarum trying to make his way back in, but both his relics are down, his ultimate is down. Julio is playing zoning against the enemy Hunter. Belt Slap gets the fire chime, and he might be getting Tarum as well. He has no defenses left to keep himself alive. He gets plucked back right into his death, and it might be the death of Spudio as well, as he's caught to the midst of them, and Julio waiting with the driving strike to end his life. Genetics uses the ultimate. He's only going to grab Arkle out of it. Johnny dumps in the back, but doesn't find anybody, and Arkle gets thrown under the tower. No ultimate for Trickstank just yet to save his teammate's life. Julio is 2v1ing along with Johnny to take down 1. Archer will fall to Worst Turtle. 2 versus 4. Worst Turtle caught in the stun, caught in the root, and caught back to the fountain. Genetics the last one standing against 4 strong of the Fire Giant Belt Slap.
Just a split engagement. It's not often that you could tie back such a large chain of events to exactly one play, but every single thing that has happened in the last 3 minutes, a tier 1 tower, a tier 2 tower, Fire Giant, a tier 2 tower on right, and now a Phoenix as well, can all be tied directly back to Guan Yu getting picked on that tier 2 tower for Belt Slap. It's just an unfortunate situation where Snake Pit was genuinely in the lead just 3 minutes ago, and now they're on the precipice of loss.
With the 3 players down, only 2 here to defend against this Phoenix. Tarum has his ultimate back up. Could elect to use it to try and sit here for a Phoenix defense, but now Spudio has to use his ultimate just to get out. They're not really too worried about the wave. They're not too worried about Tarum. They might need to be worried because Angry is back alive, so they're going to be unsuccessful in taking down this Phoenix. But they put a lot of damage onto it and could make the rotation back to it soon.
5,000 gold now separating these two teams. It's a 6,000 gold swing because Snake Pit was 1k up. Belt Slap. Now, Fire Giant on 4 members for the next 2 minutes. Can easily go back to base, spend what is likely about 5,000 gold in each of their pockets, and then regroup around this Primal Fury. Regroup on the left side of the map and strip away the last towers. It's such a hard situation. Now, Snake Pit, genuinely, their best play is to group up, potentially on a tier 2, and defend from a safe distance. You don't want to lose your lives there. You want to put up the hard defense around these Phoenixes, and they've got the tools to do it. Fantastic front line through Guan Yu, good AoE damage from Merlin as well, pick potential from the Surcat, but it's just so hard to think about it as Snake Pit was in such a better position 4 minutes ago. It's got to be a mentally draining situation.
Trick's gonna get caught onto the mids, but so is Genetics. He's gonna run into the middle of everybody. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel grabs absolutely no one. Johnny in the sky, looking for his target. Who will it be down onto? Will it be into the midst of the fray or into the back line? It'll be onto Genetics, who's low on the opposite side. The snipes are gonna be enough as Arco gets the final shot off of the driving strike from the solo laner. Now Angry is caught in the middle of all of them. He has to use his beads and his Aegis to have any hopes of staying alive, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. Flicker's out of danger for now. The boulder over the wall. Julio will find the mid laner, and that's 2 down. Might be a third with Terror as he gets shoved right back into the mid lane. Phoenix. Only Worst Turtle and Spudio left to defend, but Worst Turtle is backing on the opposite side of the Phoenix. They're going to grab the mid lane bird, and they might be grabbing even more than that. Beads out of Spudio just from the pure mind games of this solo laner. Worst Turtle back to the fountain, but the Titan under siege. 10,000 health left to it. A lot of tankiness and a lot of health because of those towers. I'm not sure they're going to be able to grab it just yet. They might be able to if they can take down a Worst Turtle, and potentially Spudio as well. Gets stunned on the backside. Aegis no beads, but the airstrike will be enough to get him out the boulder. Not gonna be enough damage, and just off the mark. Titan now under half health, but Spudio has to dash immediately right back out of it, and it looks like Belt Slap are gonna take a clean 2-0 victory over Snakepit and send them down to the losers bracket.
Yeah, Julio diff, right? I mean, we can say that. Confidently, we can say Julio diff. Julio walked at the enemy ADC and just looked at him at the end, and this man, shivering in his boots, quivering in his jacket, pops the beads out of sheer fear. I can smell it on him from here, because Julio is just a menace in the backline continuously. In the last 4 team fights, Angry wasn't allowed to play. He just had a Hercules riding him the entire time. Snakepit has so much potential as a team. They have the ability to fight it out through the early game to maintain pace with Belt Slap, but it's just small misplays here and there completely lose them out on these matches.
I mean, you just saw that Angry couldn't do anything, like you said, in those last few fights. All of his abilities were thrown on top of himself just to try and stay alive, and just the pure fear beads that came out of the Hunter in that last play, you could see at that point that was kind of the final nail in the coffin for that victory. That's it from us here on the cast desk. Go ahead and break down how that 2-0 actually finally broke out.
Well, 2 sets so far from Belt Slap, and both of them have been a 40-minute game into a 20-minute game that comes through. It seems like that first one is just them getting acclimated. We'll have to see how it works for them as they now get to move forward into the grand finals. 1 game advantage there is going to be waiting for whoever ends up facing them. But that's the downside here. I mean, looking at this game, Snakepit, again, I kind of highlighted it, but they've always struggled against Belt Slap. It seems like everyone in Europe has, and Kiki, this one's no different. In fact, if anything, this one's maybe even exacerbated because you get Julio, of all people, to pop off on Hercules.
Yeah, when you have a Hercules like that, he can unplug his computer for 5 seconds and he would be fine. You saw multiple times where Jingwei was pumping everything she had out onto him, but he would just regain it all after his 3 popped. It's really hard to get through that, especially when you have a Khepri in the backline keeping everybody else safe. Trix Tank did a great job this game. We see that right here. There's 3 people on Arkle, and he's fine. Worst Turtle tried to get it, but it's not enough. Then you have a Chang'e as well, with Soul Gem keeping the Khepri alive. Great teamwork by them.
I always think it's interesting because Scarab's Blessing, we talk so much about the res potential because it's massive, right? I mean, all of a sudden this guy that you just killed, you have to kill again, and that's frustrating sometimes. But a couple of these highlights, you get to see the other aspect of it that I think is crucial, which is that movement speed you get from it. It's not something that you get to talk about often, and I love the fact that we got to see that. Already playing people that are pretty safe, getting Arkle and the likes out of trouble because of that being able to come through is just incredibly solid, I think, all around. Trixtank playing really well. 13 assists, so you know he's coasting pretty well. 6-0-9 though there for Julio. 3-0-9 for this Chang'e. It feels like of the team that decided to run back some of their draft, it definitely favored Belt Slap much heavier than it did for Snakepit here. I mean, now that Snakepit are going, they've been knocked down into that lower bracket. What is it they need to change? Not just for teams like Belt Slap, but just in general to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
I feel like the situational builds, you see that Circuit loves this full tank build, but you're up against 2 healers, sometimes 3. I I heard Mifflin talking about a brawlers. He would have loved a brawlers on her, and I definitely agree. People think that, oh, Circuit has 100% anti-healing on your ult. That's not enough. You don't want to have to rely on one ability on your kit. Getting a brawlers lets you dash through people and apply that. Then he could have some sort of value, because the full tank, it was just not enough.
And there was an interesting thing, I didn't even expect to see this, but 24 minutes into the game, everybody on Snake Pit has under 10k damage, except for Spudio, who somehow has top damage in the game. I mean, well, Love to Fight got some good shots off. And I think it showcases that, you know, you can have a stellar performance and still not quite break down, I think, everything that you need to, is the way things went forward. And it looks like Cold Alpacas were able to squeak out a win there over Smiley Face. Very close overall, and so we know who Snake Pit will be facing as they go forward. But again, those finals, you have to look at it. It's a best of 5. That's where things will change. But Belt Slap have that one-game advantage. You'll be hearing that a lot today, I guarantee it. And so that's something that you're going to have to keep in mind. But Snake Pit, Cold Alpacas will have to go through each other to figure out who is going to be that opponent for Belt Slap to get there. That one's going to be up next. And just looking at it, like you said, Snake Pit, you know, maybe needing to change some of their situational builds. Cold Alpacas have been an interesting team to watch as well. Some eclectic drafts. I think we've seen them play Vulcan a couple of times. Like, what are you expecting out of this next set?
I'm definitely gonna expect to see maybe some different play styles from the Snake Pit. You did see them top 3 the same draft for the first 2 games. So maybe they don't need to be so comfortable. Maybe they just need something different, right? But Cold Alpacas, they're not scared to play things like Vulcan, which everyone likes to harp on Vulcan for not being a good character. But movement speed is key. His passive,
Oh, hey, it'll be a fun one to watch. Some interesting picks that are sure to happen, and we'll see if Snake Pit can bounce back after this loss. But all of that is going to come at the other end of this break. So grab some snacks, get your drinks, and we'll be right back.